Josh Hoover and the TCU offense will get back on track this weekend against Texas Tech, and it's going to lead to a victory. I'll talk about it next year on Lockdown Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate you guys rocking with us today on a Friday. TCU and Texas Tech tomorrow at 2:30 on Fox Sports. Excited to watch the Frogs get after it. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. TCU 6.5-point favorites against the Red Raiders, according to FanDuel. So you can check that out. All the college football games are there, FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. Early in the week, I was surprised, and I still am a little surprised at how big this spread is. I've said before, home field means a lot in college football when it comes to, setting the betting market, right? And TCU is coming off a nice win against Utah. I think that Utah team is hampered right now by injuries, but still, there's something to be said about going on the road and getting a victory one. But the Utes, they were in a desperate situation too. TCU was kind of fighting for their season in some ways. Utah had lost two in a row going into that game. Losing 3 in a row under Kyle Whittingham is not something they've done very often. There were really high expectations going into the season. I'm not sure what the thought was inside that building, but I know talking to Locked On Utes host JT Whistle, there was still a thought among the fan base that, hey, maybe they could go on some crazy run and sneak into Arlington at the Big 12 championship game. So there was a lot on the line for them as well, and they couldn't find a way to figure out this TCU defense. TCU offense did just enough, did pretty much all their damage in the first half, scored 3 points in the second half to salt away that 13-7 victory over Utah. And Texas Tech comes into town following a pretty catastrophic loss to Baylor. We'll see how they bounce back under Joe McGuire, but not a great moment for them coming off a bye week. Baylor was also coming off a bye week to just blow a tire at home against a Dave Aranda-led team that was winless going into that ball game. And so I thought there was somewhat of an overreaction to just those results in a vacuum, not really looking at the season as a whole, because Tech is coming in this ball game sitting at 5-2, and they've had some wins. Cincinnati, they won that game at home. Cincinnati looks like a good team. They've also had some bad moments. They've beaten both Arizona schools in Arizona State and Arizona. Abilene Christian barely escaped there with a win, had that bad loss to Wazoo, but then it seemed like they'd figured it out, minus that really tough performance against Baylor a week ago. So it's hard to make sense of what this game is going to be like. The only thing I feel pretty confident about, which probably means I'll be wrong, is that I do think points are going to be put on the board. This feels to me like it could be sort of a throwback to the Big 12 era of like the 2010s, those Mike Leach air raid teams. And both defenses have struggled mightily. TCU's coming off their best performance of the season. But I said in yesterday's show, my concern is if you can't find a way to slow down Taj Brooks, then the Texas Tech passing game is also pretty lethal. And can your corners hold up in man-to-man situations? Or will they have to go to a lighter box, allocate more resources to the passing game, and then when that happens, Taj Brooks can really get rolling, getting downhill and building steam as the game goes on. So I think it's a tough matchup for the TCU defense against the Tech offense that has put up a lot of points this year. The Texas Tech defense, however, is struggling mightily this year. They're giving up over 30 points a game. They're 92nd in the country, I believe, in rush defense, just above TCU. And they're third to last in the country in pass defense. Their defensive line is really banged up. They've only got 6 sacks this year. They didn't have a sack or a tackle for loss last week against Baylor. This feels like an opportunity for the TCU offense to get back on track. And my first key to the game, and our friend Tanner McKinney, who listens and watches on a regular basis, he's said this a couple times this week. Can you establish a run game? Now, this doesn't mean you run for 250 yards against this Tech team, but you saw some success with Trent Battle. Cam Cook, can he get back in, and maybe he's a little motivated if his snaps are cut into somewhat by the emergence of Trent Battle. Jeremy Payne had a great game against Kansas a few weeks ago, and he didn't play last week against Utah. So I'm not sure what the status is there. Bottom line is, though, you've got a few different backs who have shown some flashes this year. And Sonny Dykes said this week in his press conference, he was like, look, we're still really searching for that go-to guy, that kind of bell cow running back that you can hand the ball to and you know they're going to get those tough yards and then potentially have some explosive plays. When things break down, they can make guys miss in the open field. TCU has not had that this year. But this Tech defense has struggled to stop the run. And if you're able to run the ball well, Josh Ewers had a rough couple of weeks. That opens up everything in your offense, and it takes pressure off him and those receivers to make play after play. Put yourself in some more manageable third down conversion situations. That was a huge issue in the second half against Utah last week. Just third and long after third and long. Couldn't find a way to move the chains. Couldn't find a way to keep those drives going. And kept having to punt and put it on the back of your defense to get the job done. They also used that Savion Wild Frog package a lot last week. He had 72 yards rushing and ended up being the team's leading rusher. I would expect them to break that out. I don't think it'll be as frequent as they did against Utah because Sonny said this week, he was like, look, it's not sustainable to have him out there carrying the ball all the time. And also you imagine Tech seeing that on film, they'll probably have some better answers for it than the Utes did. But I still think it's something that they can use in spurts and in situational areas, mainly short yardage, that could be successful because Savion's so big and physical. He's got that ability to find yardage, to be patient and find the open crease when the offensive line is doing their job. So running the ball, if you can do that, one, it can help chew up the clock against the Tech offense that has been explosive this year. But also, I believe it's going to get this offense in a better rhythm. And I think this is the week where they kind of take a step forward and get back to what we saw early in the season where they were putting up 30-plus points week in and week out before they kind of hit a rut against Houston. That continued after the bye week against Utah. Both those defenses are really good, though. They're both very physical. And I'm just not sure that Tech can generate the pressure to bother Josh as much as Houston and Utah have in previous weeks. So run the ball well, give your offense a chance to be balanced and stay on schedule. Defensively, I said this yesterday, I think the key is you have to sell out to stop the run. And it's going to be difficult. There's no perfect answer because it kind of is pick your poison with the Tech offense. Can the corners hold up? Can Lamarian James and JT Broughton and Austin Jordan, Channing Canada, can they hold their own in man-to-man situations? Because if you just allow Taj Brooks to run against light boxes all day, I think it's going to be a long afternoon. But if you can put them in passing situations, then you get those big-time pass rushers involved. Allows Devin Deal to play with more freedom. Allows Marcel Brooks to get out on the field and use athleticism to try to make plays and wreak havoc. Find a way to put the ball in Baron Morton's hands. And I don't mean that to say like he's not capable of doing it. I just think if you let them live in running the ball against advantageous situations from a numbers perspective, they're going to be in 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 all day long. And that doesn't help you. One, because they can run the ball and get first downs. They really have their whole playbook to their disposal. But then also with as aggressive as Joey McGuire is, you could be in a 3rd and short situation. They don't make it, and all of a sudden he's right back up the line saying, all right, let's go for it and try to keep this drive going. So it puts a lot of strain on your defense if they're in those 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, 2nd and 3 scenarios because of what they can do running the ball. It's going to be difficult, but I think their best chance is find a way to turn the pressure up on Barron, be physical in the back end of the defense, and just do your best to have that competitive mindset of, okay, we're going to give it our best shot here, give it our best go, and kind of see what happens as we face off against an explosive Tech team. And then finally, I feel like I say this every week, and honestly, I'll probably continue to until it gets fixed, or maybe we just kind of reach the end point of the season. Can you play a clean football game? And I believe that starts with, and they did a nice job to give them credit from an energy and effort standpoint. They came out with their hair on fire against Utah. Now, they still made some mistakes. Josh Hoover had that fumble on their first drive. They had the blocked field goal after the blocked punt. But you could tell they were ready to play. And there have been games this season and really over the past 2 years where TCU just wasn't ready, or as Sonny has said this before, they weren't the most excited team to play. Their opponent was more excited to play. Frogs have not been great at home this year. Should be a good atmosphere. Use that energy to motivate yourself to play well. And then can you limit these mistakes as much as possible? I was talking about mistakes in the post-game show, and really I got on a rant about the game management stuff because of the burning 2 timeouts, eventually just taking a delay a game and punting the ball. But somebody mentioned, they were like, well, you can have all the plans in the world, but bad things are going to happen regardless. And I get that. But this has been a trend. And to me, we're past the point where it's like, well, it's just bad luck. This team, the ball keeps bouncing the other direction. They can't seem to find a way to catch a break. I mean, it's just a continual process of getting in your own way. And you have to break that cycle at some point if you're going to be successful. So can you do that this week? Because the 2 games where the Tech defense has had success this year, against Arizona, they forced turnovers. Against Arizona State, they had, the traditional turnovers, but also there were turnover on downs. They gave their offense short fields to work with. The defense did enough to cause issues. So if you can take care of the ball, I think this is a great week to kind of get your head back on straight on offense, figure some things out. If Hoover's got time to go through his progressions and make reads and make throws, I really like their chances in the passing game. So TCU and Tech, I'll come back and do a final prediction. We'll talk more about the game. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. ZBiotics, if you are tired of going out and drinking and waking up the next day and just feeling awful, or if you're an old person like me and suddenly a couple glasses of wine can't just brush that off the next day like you used to, why don't you try a pre-alcohol probiotic drink that's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic? Take that pre-alcohol before you go drinking, and you can go throughout your next day activities without worry, especially if you're a parent. You can't afford to mess with a hangover, man. Your kids are up early. They're loud. They're demanding things. You can't push through that like you used to. So here's how you use it. Step 1, drink the pre-alcohol drink. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. And then step 3, just enjoy the next day. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the code LockedOnCollege for 15% off at checkout. Thank you, ZBiotics. Also want to mention PrizePicks. If you're someone who loves fantasy sports, fantasy football, fantasy basketball, fantasy baseball, PrizePicks is the place to go. You can download the app today, use the code LockedOnCollege, and get $50 off instantly when you make a wager of $5. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action, over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, and it's pretty simple. It's just over-unders based on stat projections. So they do a great job of finding, where to put that number to make it tough on you, but you simply just go over-under. You think Justin Jefferson's going to have a big night. He's actually playing on Thursday Night Football. Didn't catch his line, but if you thought he was going to go over 85 receiving yards, you could have, made that wager tonight. PrizePicks Daily Fantasy. It's the best place to go if you're into playing daily fantasy. Download the app today. Use Locked On College and get $50 when you make a $5 wager. I've been so good at predictions this year, friends. Now, actually, I'm 3-4 on the season. And last week was the first time all year that I picked against the Frogs when they went on the road to Salt Lake City. And, of course, that was the one that I got wrong. I do believe this is a tough matchup for the TCU defense, but I think ultimately I believe in TCU's offense to get back on track to make plays. And so I'm taking the Frogs. I think they get it done, which this would be a big win because this would put you at 5-3, gives you 4 chances to get to bowl eligibility. And I think if Sonny makes a bowl game, then he's in the safe zone for next season, especially when you consider in 2025, in theory, they should have a lot of players back. I mean, Josh Hoover will be eligible to come back. All your running backs will be back. I believe your O-line, with the exception of Bless Harris, will be available, your starting offensive line. And that'll be the first time really in Sonny's era, I guess, since he got here that first year, where you had some continuity up front on the O-line. Defensively, you'll have some young players that get a lot of experience. I do think making it to a bowl game is important. Part of it's just the competitive nature of it. You could get a fun matchup, but really the reality is those extra practices, that extra time working can be really beneficial for this program, especially when you talk about trying to springboard that into what could be a big year coming up for this coaching staff in 2025. So I'll give them credit for what they did last week. I thought it was impressive, getting a win on the road, come back home, take care of business, get ready for that night game against Baylor the following week. I got the Frogs winning, a close one on Saturday afternoon. Big 12 Media Days for basketball was happening this past week. I saw Jamie Plunkett had a one-on-one interview with Haley Van Lith, a lot of excitement around the women's program, Mark Campbell in year 2. It's crazy how much juice he has brought to the table. Like last year, they had to cancel or forfeit those games. They didn't have enough players because of injuries. And this offseason, I mean, he just went out and got big-time names. Haley Van Lith is the headliner, but Maddie Shear from Kentucky. Sedona Prince is coming back. Madison Connor's coming back. Taylor Bigsby from USC. A lot of big-time recruits, big-time players who have done things at the Power 4 level will be contributors this year for TCU women's basketball. On the men's side, Jamie Dixon, in his press conference that I watched, he actually talked a lot more about big picture stuff, like in the future of college basketball, of college sports. But he also talked about this team. He acknowledged that people are frustrated. Like if you start getting to the tournament on a regular basis, suddenly it's like, okay, what's the next step? Right? Like you did this. This is awesome. We've never done this before, but now we want to do the next thing. And so this is a critical year. I think the issue for Jamie is, and this is not really unique at this point because they've done this the last few seasons, but you've got another big-time roster turnover situation on your hands. Ernest Uday is really the only guy coming back that played significant minutes last year. You've got some veterans. I mean, Frankie Collins has been around for a long time. He's most likely going to be your starting point guard. Was at Arizona State previously. Started his career in Michigan. Noah Reynolds has done some nice things at Green Bay. Brendan Winslow has done some great things at Wyoming. But you got to make all these pieces fit together. You've also got Isaiah Manning and Jace Posey, 2 redshirt freshmen who didn't play last year, but are going to get some opportunities this season, and a talented freshman class. So how quickly can you gel together as a unit? Because that Big 12 schedule is absolutely brutal. You got 20 games now that you're playing. And so you have to find a way to be efficient, to be good, and do it quickly. And that's going to be the challenge for Jamie Dixon and his coaching staff as they get ready for TCU basketball, which is just about 2 weeks away. So it's coming up fast as the Frogs will start getting some real deal action happening soon. When we come back, we'll get some reaction, wrap things up. It's Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. I started the show with this FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. TCU 6.5-point favorites against Texas Tech in tomorrow's ball game. It's a great time of year to be a sports fan. NHL has started up. NBA. Mavs are back on the floor tonight to beat the Spurs. Klay Thompson looked really good in his Mavericks debut. World Series starts tonight. So you get it. There's a lot of overlap right now. It's the perfect time to be on FanDuel. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. One $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets. Again, that's one $5 bet and get up to $200 in bonus bets. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app. Start an account today. FanDuel, official betting partner of the NFL and a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, @SimcockSteven, it's a good week to do it because I'll have programming notes. So just to let you guys behind the curtain a little bit, we're going on a family trip this week. My family is. We're going to Montana, Big Sky, Montana. My wife, my 4 kids, and then the rest of her family. A few months ago, my father-in-law was diagnosed with ALS. And so he wanted to take this trip. If you're someone who believes in prayer, pray for him, pray for us. But he wanted to take this trip as a family. So we're going Saturday morning. We're flying out and flying into Bozeman. So I'll have a post-game show. My plan is to have a post-game show up by Sunday morning. I seriously doubt that it will be a live show. My guess is I'll hopefully have an opportunity to put something together late that evening, and then it'll be available for you guys on Sunday morning. And it'll be Baylor week, fun week, rivalry week, right? So I plan on having shows all week long. Timing might be a little weird. Also, I think technically everything will be okay, but, we're kind of in a pretty rural part of the country. So I'm not sure how long it's going to take to upload and all that. I'll let you guys know. You can follow me at SimcockSteven. I don't sense any interruptions that are going to happen besides that post-game show that's typically live, like right after the game. Won't be live. It'll probably be recorded late at night and then up on Sunday morning. But hopefully we're talking about a TCU win. I appreciate you guys tuning in all week. On yesterday's show, Brian Caper says that TCU and Texas Tech had 3 consecutive ties in the 80s. I had no idea that was a thing. That's a very interesting note. I do love the battle for the saddle. I love the trophy. I like the team just carried off the field. I think it's a very cool and underrated rivalry trophy. So the Frogs have a chance to take it back after losing last year in Lubbock on a Thursday night. TCU, Texas Tech, 2:30. I'm excited. I really think this will be a good barometer for the offense. Are there actually, fundamental issues that are holding them back, or is it just you face some good defenses for a few weeks and Josh Hoover, in a one-dimensional offense, struggled against those teams that can kind of exploit TCU's weaknesses a little more than the other opponents they played throughout the season. Regardless, we'll have coverage all week long. Thank you for joining the show. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast.